All right, it's a little bit early, but let's finish this chapter up. So under the styling the content that starts on page 190, the first thing we're going to do is to install the Bootstrap package. Now please look on the screen because this is kind of important. We're going to do it through the package manager, and we're using an older version. I believe they use some wells and panels in here. Wells and panels were basically they're gone come Bootstrap 4. So if it, just to make sure that ours looks the way that it does on the the way it's supposed to look. All right, I don't want us to take stuff that basically is kind of gone by the wayside. All right, so we're going to go in. If you grab that line of code on the bottom of page 190, very bottom of the page, we're going to use that version. So I'm going to copy that, go back to the package here. I'm sorry, go back to the program here, and do a Tools, New Get Package Manager, and bring up the console. Bless you. Then I'm going to paste that in. So again, this is the line that you see up on the screen is the same one that's in your book on the bottom of page 190. All right, hit enter. Now, notice it says in here, one or more resolved package dependency constraints detected, yeah, etc. It's letting me know. Now, I'm not sure why it's letting me know this, but it is letting me know that there is a potential problem. Now, it could be something very minor, and a lot of times when these warnings come up, they mean nothing. But it also could mean that we've used some, if we keep mixing versions and use some of the newer stuff and some of the older stuff, there could potentially be a problem. All right? Okay, so the first thing that we want to do, what the author says, in Chapter 5, we explained how layouts work, etc. So it says we can see the contents of the view start file. Let's double check and make sure that indeed this is the contents, and it should be, of our view start file. How do I know for sure? Well, I'm going to go look. There's my view start. There it is, and I'm going to get rid of it right away, but that's what the book says it should look like. That tilde always means the root of your project, views/shared/layout, so that's correct. So I can get rid of it. All right, I just wanted, like I said, just double check and make sure. All right, so that's first thing. The value of the layout property, it says, specifies what we're using. All right, so we are to go in and make massive changes to the underscore layout.cs HTML file. Before we make these, let's look at them. Well, first thing that we're doing is we're providing Bootstrap. Second thing we're doing is we're providing the Bootstrap theme. All right. Then in our body, we're adding the Navbar inverse. All right. It's a navigation. All right. The brand will say Sports Store on it. And this is the thing. They're using panels in here. And I believe, at least, I could be wrong, but I thought panels and wells have both been deprecated for Bootstrap 4. So what I'm telling you is, if you were to have used Bootstrap 4 or above, and I think the newest version is like 4.3.1 or 4.3.3, this may not work. All right? So as it says, put something useful here, etc. So let's start with that. So I'm going to grab everything that's in the layout.cs HTML file, copy it to the clipboard, and replace the current layout underscore layout.cs HTML file, all of it with this. Always a good sign when you do that, and you get no red over here. All right, which means at least hopefully everything went okay so far. All right. So it says we've added the Bootstrap CSS and theme CSS to our layout. All right. We also need to change our list to take advantage of this stuff. This is the other one. We talked about panels. Look on the screen, please. There's wells. Panels and wells have been replaced by something called cards in Bootstrap 4. All right. So in the for each statement and in the div that goes underneath it, I'm just going to grab all that. Go back to my list.cshtml file and replace what was in there with this. All right. Now next, the author's got this section here on page 192 that's entitled The Problem with Styling Elements. All right. The author is keeping this simple, but he talks about the fact some people, when they do this, go Bootstrap nuts and have no CSS. Other people put a lot of Bootstrap in and have very little CSS. You should do what's comfortable for you. All right? But if you find yourself putting in tons of CSS that's overriding the Bootstrap, then do you really want the Bootstrap? All right? So the author says that if we run this, it should at least look a little better. So I'm going to do a file save all, and I'm going to run it. And this is the first time since we've been running this that there has been some styling actually provided for it. And there you see it. Again, is it great? No. It's not bad, though. It looks a heck of a lot better than it did. And you see this? Put something useful here later. Can everybody see this? What we're going to do in the next lesson is we're going to make 4 hyperlinks that are going to end up looking like buttons here that say home, water sports, soccer, chess. And we'll be able to click any one of those and go to that particular category of products. That's what's in the next chapter that we'll start in a little bit. All right. Also notice our page numbering at the bottom of the page looks much nicer than it did before. All right. Much more professional. Now we're on page 2. Now we're on page 3. All right. We still have our pretty URLs up here too. Okay. So the last thing that we are asked to do in this chapter, starting on page 193, and it's 193, 194, and 195, is to create what's called a partial view. All right? So that's the last thing that we're going to do in this particular chapter. So I'm on the bottom part of page, or bottom half, I guess, of page 193. I don't want to read to you, but the author does say in here, in a partial view, you pull out a fragment of content and you put it in its own file. Then that fragment can be used kind of like a template. So for lack of better words, what we're going to do right now is to create a template. Please look up on the screen because I'm going to follow these steps, but please look. This will be the first time, okay, that when we go into the views folder and we select add view, don't worry about all that stuff, but the key thing will be there is a checkbox in there that says create as partial view. So look on the screen here. You'll want to make sure that is checked right there. And if you don't, it's not going to work correctly. All right? So again, just following the author's lead, I'm on the bottom half of page 193. All right? says we want to be in our Views Shared folder under Web UI. All right, so there's Views and there's Shared right there. So that's where I want to be. All right, and we want to select Add Views from the pop-up. So right mouse click, do an Add View, and the name will be Product Summary. All right, so I'm going to right mouse click on here and choose Add and choose View, which is right at the top. So again, I'm in Shared, which I just in the Shared folder, I'm doing an Add View. When what comes up, we're told to call this Product Summary. All right. And we're also shown in here, it should be empty, and the model class should be Product. But again, the key takeaway is this: Create as a partial view should be checked. Empty. It's empty or empty without model? I think it was empty without model. Don't just to empty. All right. Then we want product. Sorry, I'm a little out of it. Product sports store domain entities. Right there. All right. We leave the data context class empty, but we check the create as partial view. Right there. Now, the use a layout page, notice that it went away now. Once we do the partial view, we lose control over what goes into that layout page part. All right? So I believe everything looks the way that it should. To double check here, I'm going to do, well, I don't know if it'll let me even do this, but I think it will. All right, product summary, empty, product sports store domain entities, and create as partial view. So that looks correct as far as I can tell. All right. After doing all that, I'm going to click the Add button. As it says, once we do that, Visual Studio will create a partial view called Product Summary. That product summary will be in Shared. Why? Because that's where we told it to go. Now again, the author mentions here on page 194. A partial view is similar to a regular view, except it produces a fragment of HTML. In other words, it's not a real document. It's part of a document. All right? It says if you open the product summary view, we can do that. It'll probably be opened anyway. What's in there? Not very much. When you look right now, there sure isn't much in there. All right? So the author says we should apply the changes that are shown. We're adding a div. Remember what this page is called. Product Summary page. All right? So let's first copy it and put it in there. There it is. So it should give us the model name, price, and description, it looks like. All right? So it says now we need to update our list.cshtml to take advantage of the partial view. This is the most important part of what we've done so far. Please look on the screen. We're going to replace that big for loop that's inside of our list.cshtml file. So let's bring that up. There it is. So we're replacing that big for, it's for each, but we're replacing that whole loop with this. Typically, the reason that you would create a partial view is it'll result in less code. All right? So the author says, I have taken the markup that was previously in the for each loop in list.cshtml. That's what has been moved to the partial view. All right? It says, I call the partial view using html.partial helper method. What does that mean? That's this. This says when we get into that for loop, plunk in all that stuff that we just put in to that partial view file. Now, so what does that mean? Bottom line is, it should look exactly the same when we run it. That's the key takeaway. So, File, Save All, and then let's run it. Now, if I get an error or it doesn't work, then I missed something, but I don't think I did. So the author mentions, and we'll go back to the hand up, there it is. Looks the same. Our page links still work. Again, in the next chapter, we're going to fix this. Right there. All right? So the author does come back because we're basically done with this chapter, but mentions right here. Again, this is the whole big takeaway for a partial view. I have taken the markup that was previously in the for each loop and moved it to a partial view. All right? Switching to a partial view is good practice, but it should not ever change the appearance. And it did not. So, to finish up this chapter, all right, the author says that we built most of the core infrastructure for the Sports Store app. Doesn't have a lot of features. Can't buy anything right now. When we get to almost the end of Chapter 8, we'll add the shopping cart. So we'll have a shopping cart in here, but I do want you to understand something. All right? That is that even when we get done with this project, are we working with a real database? Before you say yes or no, I'll give you the political answer, which is yes and no. What I mean is, are we using a real database? Yes. Will we be using a real database in the project we start next week? Yes. But as we buy things, we're not actually decrementing something that's in a database. That is a lot more work, and it's not that it couldn't be done. But we'd have to always check, do we have enough in our database? Somebody comes in and wants to buy 500 kayaks, and we got 100 in stock. How are we handling that? All right? And we're not in our example. So the author says here, if this chapter felt like a lot of setup for little benefit, you'll get more in the next chapter. All right? So it says we will navigate by category, we'll add a shopping cart, and we'll add a checkout process. I think I mentioned this to you before, but I do want to say it again. And that is, in the example that we're doing, the checkout, it's kind of a nice feature or kind of not, depending on your point of view. There's no tax. So you can buy yourself a lot of stuff, and it's like you're in a tax-free state or whatever. There's no sales tax. Again, that wouldn't be that hard to implement. I thought of saying, well, I want you guys to do it. You can try it if you want. All right? I have not even tried, but I wouldn't think it would be that difficult to do. All right? So let me grab this and stop, and I'm going to start the next chapter right away. So, okay.